Is it Al?
Yes, it is.
How you doing, Al?
I'm doing good.
What do you got for
My
us?
comment was about my beliefs. As a child, I went to, church and Sunday school. So, I was like, I believed in God and Jesus. But as I got older, I noticed something like, well, my parents are sending me to church and to Sunday school, but they're not going. And so I wondered about that. But as I got older, it was comfortable to continue believing, in God and religion. But again, as I got older and life experiences, happened, it became apparent to me that I didn't really believe in it, like you were saying a little bit ago, Matt, that I didn't really believe in my heart what I was saying I believed. And so essentially I was a hypocrite, I guess, because I was saying I believed, but I was doing something else. I was acting another way. I wasn't, I wasn't practicing religion. I wasn't going to church. But I was still saying I believed because it was comfortable to me. Mm-hmm. And then when I finally decided that, no, I don't believe this stuff. I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in God. Then I felt uncomfortable not having this belief to kind of fall back onto when times were hard or things like that. And it's still, there's still some of that residue of belief
right.
from the past that is still with me, and I still have times when I'm uncomfortable with being an agnostic or an atheist.
Yeah, I'm curious about one thing. In this process, this time where you were coming to realize that you didn't really believe the things that you professed to believe, if somebody would have asked you, even as you were coming to terms with all that, if setting the religion aside, if you still sincerely believed in a God, would you have answered yes? And
yes, I did.
Would it have been true?
And that happened. And I did do that. I answered yes.
And was it honest?
No, it was not.
Okay. Yeah. There are I think occasions where somebody would have answered yes there and have been honest that this was still their sincere belief, even during this process of discovering that they don't believe. It's not like one day there's a light. If you're going from belief, especially in Christian religions, to atheism, agnosticism, whatever, it's not like one day there's a light switch usually where all of a sudden you stop believing everything you used to. For me, even in the course of studying and looking at all this over time, it was I got rid of bits and pieces of belief. It was, obviously this part isn't literally true, but these other parts are. And then, no, that can't be literally true either. And then, well, this is wrong, but there's still this God thing that I think is the best answer, and I still believe it. And just kind of shuffle these things off until you get to a point where, oh, I am in fact an atheist. So there was some point in my process anyway where somebody could have asked me if I still believed in God but not Jesus, and I would have said yes. Or if I still believed in God in some alternate sense, and I would have said yes. And it would have been honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I relate to that. Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the whole light switch because that's it doesn't really, we don't, when you're falling away from these kinds of beliefs that you're raised in, it's not like you have this kind of road to Damascus experience where suddenly you have a great epiphany. Like a friend of mine back when I was in the comics business in the 90s, and he did this wonderful strip where he was this colleague of mine where he did he was lampooning the whole Gen X thing going on, and he had a bunch of them go to a smart bar where you could buy smart drinks. And they would drink it, and the drink would make them smart. And they would have this suddenly be like, oh my God, I just paid $5 for this thing. I'm an idiot. Or, I think I'm such an independent rebel, and yet I'm just following the herd. I'm really stupid. It's not really like that. You don't get that sort of instant. But what's interesting about the situation that you described for yourself, Al, is of course Christians will latch on to that. Usually what I've heard a lot of times when atheists will say, I just sort of went to church and all this, but I never really kind of got into it, and then, I wasn't sure. They'll just respond by saying, yes, well, of course, you didn't really have the sincere belief at the time, so, and they tend to dismiss atheism when it has this root of, well, I tried the whole church deal, but it just didn't really kind of click with me, and I never really felt like I believed it, so I sort of slunk away from it. They're like, well, that's fine. It's just their response would be, oh, well, the Spirit of the Lord clearly didn't, you weren't ready, or whatever their answer will be. I usually describe my situation where I'll tell people flat out, and I had a similar experience to you. I was raised in a Christian home, and it was a church every Sunday sort of thing, and I'll tell people today, I have wonderful experience and wonderful memories of, when being an adolescent, 13, 14, 15, I guess, were sort of when I started to drift away from it. But right around 13 and 14, with, the youth group in my church and going to the little socials that they would have for the youth, and actually even one summer went to camp. Went to camp one summer, and that was lots of fun. Certainly strange to think back on it and understanding the kinds of manipulation and brainwashing that were going on in bits of it. But overall, I have wonderful memories of those times in my life. But all of that is really irrelevant to when it came to my actually exploring what I was being taught and what I was being told to believe as truths, and thinking about it and deciding that it didn't really stand up to that kind of scrutiny. I realized that I probably, certainly when I was younger, I think I did believe in God and in Jesus, because you would get that sort of internal feeling of unease when you would hear someone sort of speaking against it. And I think that unless you have some sort of emotional commitment to the belief, you don't really kind of feel that unease. But that really wasn't so much what influenced me towards atheism eventually. It was just ultimately, A, my thinking about it, B, the fact that I saw a lot of people perhaps in my church not practicing what they preached.
Yeah.
And that can be a disillusioning factor, but mainly it was just my thinking about the questions that were coming up and my problems with this whole idea of, but what if somebody's really nice? I mean, and they just don't happen to be a churchgoer. Is it really fair to just send someone to hell forever and what have you and what have you? So it was a lengthy process of this, and I think that I did go from a belief that at least felt to me very, very sincere at a young age to now where I am as very outspoken atheist. But it was it wasn't something that came easy, and I certainly don't think that it was something for me that came from admitting all along, no, I never really believed this crap anyway. Because again, Christians will just latch on that and say, oh, well, that's a cop-out. You never really had it in the first place, so you haven't given it a try, so how do you know? I always like to point out, no, I think I really did give it a shot, and I really did, over years and years and years, think about it very, very hard. And so I understand what you're going through and what a lot of the confusions and unease you're having.
I think was this probably a while ago, Al?
Well, this process has been going on my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you kind of identified as agnostic, atheist, whatever, or non-religious?
I would have to say probably within the last 5 years or so. Okay. It just, like I said, as an adult, you kind of have to make decisions, and you come to understand that life is not comfortable. It's not easy sometimes. It's you have to make difficult decisions, and I like making my decisions based on reality. Mm-hmm. And so the processes of going from a religious person to an agnostic to an atheist is, for me, was a long process. So
and then it's entirely normal what you're going through.
Yeah.
But
thanks for taking my comments.
Sure, anytime.
Thanks for sharing all of that.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Stay in touch. Call again sometime.